Hi, and welcome to 647. 6 stories for 7 a.m. because there's a famine of truth in our land. And this is your quick news fix. And the truth starts now. Well, a shout out to my shooting instructor, Brent, also my gunsmith. And he has had so many requests from his students who are churchgoers to please develop a security system for churches, a proper security plan. And so I'm working with him on that. I have a huge background in planning. He's got a great format that he is putting together. And just a shout out to somebody who is meeting a need out there in the community that personally, I think the sheriff's department and others are remiss in not saying, hey, you know what? There's lots of church shootings. They are soft targets. Let's formalize this. Let's get something going. So Brent's doing it. Way to go. All right, take one. China begins paying women to have babies. What an interesting turnaround. God is good that these terrible communists who threatened their people to strangle infant daughters because they just wanted sons. And this is the government doing this. Now they realize that they're not replacing themselves. And so they're addressing it in true CCP fashion. China's state-run Global Times on Monday reported that 25 provincial authorities are set to begin distributing maternity allowances to women on November 1. China's National Healthcare Security Administration said the direct subsidies for childbirth intended to cover living expenses paid to female employees during maternity leave would bring China one step closer to becoming a childbirth-friendly society. Yeah, except you're paying it to the employers, you goofballs. And what do you think's going to happen? The employers are going to pocket most of it. Yeah, love communists. Same thing goes on in our country. China has already implemented several programs to reduce the cost of maternity and child rearing, but until now, the subsidies were generally paid to employers rather than directly distributed to the beneficiaries. No problem there, right, Chi-Coms? Demography experts told the Global Times that routing the subsidies through employers invited deductions, delays, or misuse, including employers deciding to keep some of the subsidy money to offset the cost of paid maternity leave. That's all government speak. These guys were pocketing this thing. So it hasn't been working. So nobody's having kids because they're not getting the money. And guess what? When you pay people to have kids, it's not going to fix your society. Louise Liu, head of Asia research for Oxford Economics, glumly noted to the Washington Post that it is almost impossible to reverse a demographic decline, even for an authoritarian regime like China with fairly deep pockets. China's brutal one-child policy of population control left the next generation short of fertile women. Reprobate. Reprobates. Stugats. What did you think was going to happen? The Chinese communist regime seemed surprised that it could not simply order its population to start having more children when demographic decline became apparent. I hope there's nothing more to this. Good. What a bunch of dopes. All right, take two. This is music. House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan on Tuesday referred former Central Intelligence Agency Director John CNN Brennan to the Justice Department for criminal prosecution, alleging Brennan knowingly made false statements during his transcribed interview before the panel in 2023. Jordan, an Ohio Republican, says Brennan made numerous willfully and intentionally false statements of material fact that were contradicted by the record established by the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence and the CIA. Such statements included the assertion the CIA relied on the so-called Steele dossier in drafting the post-2016 election intelligence community assessment. So the dossier was essentially opposition research financed, at least in part, by Democrats, that the 2016 Trump campaign colluded with Russia to win the election. The dossier, which in part led to efforts to impeach President Trump, has since been largely discredited. Wow, is this? We all know this dossier was paid for by the Clintons and the DNC, and this guy Brennan is as dirty as they come. He was the leader of that group of 51 that said Hunter's laptop was bogus. It was put together by Russia. This guy and the other 50 all need to be in chains. Jordan also said in a press release announcing the DOJ referral that Brennan falsely testified when he told the committee that the CIA opposed including the Steele dossier in the intelligence community assessment. Man, I don't know where I got this, but this person, he's like writing for the Communist Party. He's so careful. What a jerk. And Brennan's a jerk. And I'm so happy that he's on his way to grand jury fun. All right, take 3. President Trump's expanding Medicare to cover obesity medications. This is, again, a rah-rah article that I don't think is a rah-rah article, right? It's welcome to dystopia. What this article is about is Ozempic for all, okay? And they're all writing this much like the COVID vaccine. Oh, this is going to be great. It's not going to be great, okay? And if you know people on Ozempic, they may look skinny, and that's about the only benefit. Everything else is a downside. Let's go. President Trump has an opportunity to deliver a historic win for older Americans, modernize Medicare to cover proven FDA-approved anti-obesity medications that can help millions of seniors live longer, healthier, more independent lives, while also strengthening Medicare's fiscal outlook. But the fiscal outlook of all these people who now have to give themselves a shot in the stomach permanently every day they're alive. They cannot stop taking it, and they get weaker and weaker and weaker. Why would that be? Well, what does the shot do? It paralyzes your stomach. Sounds like a good idea. You want to run that by your great-grandparents? You know what they'd say? Eat an apple and stop eating sugar and do some work. Obesity isn't about appearances. It's a chronic, life-threatening disease that drives heart attacks, strokes, diabetes, joint failure, and other costly conditions that weigh heavily on Medicare's budget and has nothing to do with the refrigerator. Nearly half of Americans over 60 struggle with obesity, yet Medicare still refuses to cover prescription medications that treat obesity directly, even as it pays for the consequences of leaving the disease untreated. That makes no sense medically or economically. I'm sorry, but this doesn't make any sense to me either. So the latest generation of treatments known as GLP-1 receptor agonists, that's a great name, agonists, it's going to end up being agony for these people, has changed what's possible in obesity care. These aren't fad diet pills. They are clinically proven medications that help patients safely lose weight, improve blood sugar control, lower blood pressure, and protect heart health, but for millions of seniors on Medicare, these breakthroughs remain out of reach. Yeah, but the refrigerator is, and this is not a good news article. I'm sorry. Then down the road, we're going to be doing, oh, there's all these complications from Ozempic and others. Look up all the articles about Ozempic eyes, Ozempic mouth, Ozempic neck. It's unbelievable. Take 4. 5 things to know about Sanai Ichi, Japan's first female prime minister. This chick is cut from the cloth of Trump, and this is a good thing for Japan, so we better get her name right. Takaichi, Sanai Takaichi. All right, let's go. Japan's first ever female prime minister. Sanai Takaichi is an ultra-conservative with a traditional view of gender roles and a penchant for heavy metal music. I wonder about that. Japan's parliament, this is the Trump effect, Japan's parliament elected Takaichi on Tuesday, several weeks after she was chosen to lead the conservative Liberal Democratic Party, the LDP, which has spent much of the last 7 decades in power. The LDP is seen as shifting further to the right. It was only able to elect Takaichi by forming an alliance with a right-wing populist party. Sound familiar? Sound like the way the wind's blowing right now all around the globe? After losing its longtime coalition partner earlier this month. Takaichi, 64, is one of the most conservative people in Japan's conservative LDP. So some things to know. 1, she isn't from a political family. 2, she spent decades in politics. 3, her views have caused controversy. What might they be? Like she's pro-deficit spending. That doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound especially conservative either. Programs to promote having kids. Okay, guess what? Every country is facing this now, except the African countries. Women should not keep their maiden name after marriage. I don't know why you want to make that kind of trouble, but okay. She's anti-immigrant and anti-tourist. See, this chick's got a military helmet in the back of her closet. I don't know. 4, she's not a feminist. And Japan has the 4th largest economy, ranks 118th in gender equality. Only 10% of the positions in the government are occupied by women. 5, she is pro-Trump. She has advocated for tougher immigration restrictions and embraced hawkish policies on China. She has drawn comparisons to the late British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, for whom she has frequently expressed her admiration and often wears blue suits in tribute. Yeah, everybody's wearing blue suits in tribute these days. Look, this is a good thing for us. We need allies who embrace conservative populism. I don't mind her nationalism. It's all about making Japan stronger, and if Japan is stronger, that's good for us. All right, take 5. Trump's DHS arrests more than 480,000 illegals in 9 months. 7 in 10 are criminally convicted or charged. President Donald Trump's DHS has arrested nearly 500,000 illegal aliens in the last 9 months, Secretary Kristi Noem revealed, with the majority having criminal charges or criminal convictions. Since January, the Department of Homeland Security has arrested, you think they want you to know that number? It's 3 times in 5 seconds. 480,000 criminal illegal aliens. 70% of those individuals have criminal charges against them or have been convicted of those criminal charges. Noem said DHS and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, that's ICE, are focused on the worst of the worst, bringing these individuals to justice. Notice this is the opposite story the legacy media tells, which is grandmas having their grandchildren yanked out of their arms who have been here as part of neighborhoods for 25 plus years. We are not going to let these individuals terrorize our streets anymore, and we're not going to let them make victims out of families that live in this country. So here's the bottom line. Please come here, but come here legally. If you figured out how to come here illegally and you thought nothing was ever going to happen, you're wrong. And you know why you're wrong? All of these people, and I know many of them, okay, who have been living, especially I spent years in Los Angeles, and I knew lots of people who had come illegally and were there for generations, okay? Guess who brought all this hell down on them? The Democrats. Because the Democrats don't care about the immigrants. What they care about is overwhelming the vote and positioning all these people in close race areas, okay, in terms of voting. And then they incentivize them with free stuff to vote blue, and then they don't care what happens to them. So all of these other people that were living nice, productive lives, but were illegally here, now have this hellstorm over them. And thank you, Democrats, for being awful people. And instead, all the celebrities and everybody, oh my gosh, the heartless Republicans. It's always the opposite of what they say. All right, take 6. This is total BS, but I just want you to be aware of these things like, oh, great, Medicare is going to cover Ozempic. Let's all run out and get skinny and then be on this thing. Start your morning right with a hypodermic needle, shoving it in your stomach, paralyzing your stomach, and then you think other things are going to happen to you systemically. They do, but man, you're back in your high school jeans. Great job. Okay, this is another setup. There's a famine of truth, right? It's not changing. It's getting worse. So this story totally doesn't pass the smell test. Jan 6 rioter pardoned by Trump, charged with threats against Hakeem Jeffries. Okay, let's get to the story here. And you tell me if this sounds like this guy had anything to do with any of this. A Jan 6 defendant who was among the hundreds President Trump pardoned, so that's bad on him, in January, was arrested last Saturday for making a credible death threat against House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Democrat, New York, the congressman said in a statement. Christopher Moynihan, a 34-year-old from Clinton, New York, was charged with a felony count of making a terroristic threat, according to New York State Police. Charging documents show that the FBI received, ready, an anonymous tip from an individual concerned over recent suspected narcotic abuse and an increase in the respondents' homicidal ideations. Moynihan allegedly said that he planned to kill Jeffries in New York City for the future. This is all made up. There's no verification of any of it. Hakeem Jeffries makes a speech in a few days in New York City. I cannot allow this terrorist to live. Does that sound like the speech of a guy who spent months in jail for J6? Hakeem Jeffries makes a speech in a few days in New York City. I cannot allow this terrorist to live. These goofballs, when they write this stuff, they go to AI. This is AI speak. This is not a guy who hates Hakeem Jeffries. And then it's after this AI speak, it says Moynihan allegedly wrote. Even if I am hated, he must be eliminated. This is ridiculous. It's like a bad sci-fi movie. Jeffrey spoke at a luncheon at the Economist Club of New York on Monday. This does not pass the smell test. This is ridiculous. State police said that on Saturday, the FBI advised them of the threats, and after a thorough investigation, Moynihan was arrested and arraigned before the town of Clinton court, all lefties, a total lefty suburb of New York. Kash Patel, would you please stomp on somebody on this? Moynihan is currently being held at the Dutchess County Justice and Transition Center in Poughkeepsie, New York. Police said a judge set his cash bail at $10,000, his bond at $30,000, or a partially secured bond of $80,000. He has another court appearance on Thursday. So this guy's getting totally harassed. They're trying to depict him as an advanced reprobate, right? He gets let out by Trump, and he immediately wants to kill Hakeem Jeffries, and he lets lefties know about it. Oh, and he's also using narcotics and yelling about his homicidal ideation. This is not even put together well. It doesn't sound like real human behavior at all. But I tell you what it does sound like. It sounds like lefty harassment to be able to say, see, the right is violent. Pay attention, folks. There's a famine of truth. There's a bunch in this 647 today that is people trying to fool you. You watch and see what happens with this. All right. That's it for today. It's Wednesday. You know what Wednesday is? It's Hump Day. You're going over the top. It's fantastic. You could say, you know what? By noon, the bulk of the week's behind me, because we know you're not putting in a full Friday. Almost nobody does. I do, but almost nobody does. So because I do, I want you to like us. I want you to share us. I want you to make comments, not get on the good foot. That's not a comment, okay? I know what you're doing. Let's talk substance in these comments. All right, you know what you're going to do. Push us out to your network. And guess what? Hump Day. God loves Hump Day because he knows you're there doing your job, doing it well, with integrity, with creativity, doing the best you can. And because of that, dear God, please spread your arms out and bless all of these brothers and sisters in 647. God bless you and thank you. Take care.